Welcome to Jazz Time. JazzTime.com is an online store that buys, sells, trades authentic luxury watches. We make these videos so our customers can easily choose the best watch for themselves in the comfort of their own home. If you like this watch and would like to purchase it at the lowest price anywhere online, click on the link in the description below to buy it at JazzTime.com. Today, I'm going to be reviewing the Rolex Cosmograph Daytona in stainless steel with a black dial, reference 12650 00LN, new 2023 release, second generation of this watch. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the history, where it lines up with the rest of the watches in its similar collection, then talk to you about the bezel dial case bracelet movement, try it on, and give you my thoughts. So let's start with the history. The Daytona has been out for a very long time. I want to say approximately 50 years or so, and it is one of the staple collections that Rolex makes in their sports line. They make a lot of different sports lines such as the Submariner, the Yachtmaster, the Deep Sea, the Explorer, so on and so forth, and of course the famous Daytona. I would even argue that the Daytona is their most prestigious line. It may not be their most popular line, but it is their most prestigious line, and I'll tell you why in a little bit when I talk about the materials. So the history of this watch, when it first came out, it's always been a chronograph. That's the hallmark of the Daytona. It has had minor evolutionary, not revolutionary, but evolutionary changes throughout its history. And it has gone from, it's always been 40 millimeters, and it always will stay 40 millimeters. In approximately 2000, I want to say 10 years ago, so I guess that would make it approximately 2015 or so, they came out with a steel Daytona that looks almost exactly like this with a ceramic bezel. That's why I call this one the second generation, because before 2015 it was on a stainless steel bezel, and that's when they first started to change this one to the ceramic bezel. I'll tell you about the differences on it in a little bit as well. Okay, now let's talk about where this stands with the rest of it in its same class. The Daytona is made in many different materials and configurations. In fact, of the sports line, the Daytona has the most amount of different configurations of any sports watch that Rolex makes, and probably because this is their most prestigious line, and it makes sense to just make a lot of variations of it. So they make it in steel, which is what you see. They make it steel and gold. They also make it in yellow gold, rose gold, white gold, and they also make it with the Oyster Flex variation, again in all those same materials. And they also make the one material that they don't make it in any other sports watch, which is platinum. So they reserve platinum for their most prestigious sports line, which is the Daytona. And that's the reason why I believe that even Rolex concedes that their Daytona is the top of the line sports watch. In fact, not only does it have the most, uses the most expensive material, it also has, it's their most complicated sports watch, that being the chronograph. Even though chronograph is as a common complication, it's still a complicated one. Okay, so that's where it lines up with the rest of them in its class. Now, let's move on to the case. Now, the case is unchanged from its first generation. It's still an Oyster case, and it's 40 millimeters. That's from my thumb to my index finger, the 8 o'clock, the 2 o'clock part of the bezel. And it's has an Oyster case because the Oyster case has a smooth lines on it, which make it more reminiscent of a watch that has history in sporting and racing. The Daytona has driving history, the Daytona race, of course. The Yachtmaster also has the Oyster case, and when I mean Oyster case, I mean the case itself has these smooth lines, as opposed to, for example, their Submariner or Deep Sea, which has very blocky lines, or rigid square lines, which don't really lend itself to like a racing sleek aesthetic. Okay, all right, so that is the case. Now let's move on to the bezel here. Now, the bezel is changed from the previous generation. Now, what is changed exactly? Well, it's still black. It's still in ceramic, so it's still not going to scratch or fade. It's unaffected by UV rays, and it's a very durable, and it has a very large or very legible tachymetric scale that you see here, and all those. And it actually, interestingly, it's the same as on the older version, but these little numbers here, they're not, they look just white. You might wonder what it is, but it actually is a very thin layer of platinum in the numerals and graduations, and they do that via a PVD, physical vapor deposition process. Okay, and the bezel is actually made from a single piece and holds the crystal in place, and that's what makes this bezel very special, is that it doesn't scratch, fade. It can crack though if you hit it hard enough, but you really have to hit it hard. Okay, what is different though is on the outside of the bezel, as you can see here, it is in steel, and that the metal matches the case. So whatever it is, if let's say you have yellow, then it's going to have a yellow bezel holder. Now, instead of having the entire thing in ceramic, which is what it was before, it only puts the insert in ceramic, which I think is a nice touch. The only downside to that is that insert, or the metal part, can get a little bit scratched, but that's the cost you take to make it look beautiful like this. Okay, so that is the bezel, and I believe the bezel, the current bezel looks a little better than the older bezel. Okay, that is the bezel, and let's move on to the dial here. Okay, now the dial, still the stainless steel only comes in two variations, black or white, which I think is good, and they're not going to change that. I really highly doubt they'll make any other, because if you want other dial colors, you have to do it other metals. But black and white is basic, it goes with everything. But what is different about the dial, and why should you change? Well, you should change because the new dial is better in this way. The sub dials are thinner. They're not as thick as they were. It's not a huge difference, but it is a difference. And also the hour markers, these 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth, are thinner and longer. Before they were shorter and thicker. And why is that good? Well, they made the hour markers thinner, they made them longer, and they made the subdials thinner, which opens up the dial a little bit more, makes more room, and it makes it look less crowded. The chronographs are a very crowded watch to begin with. It's got all these subdials, all these tickers, markers, whatever. It looks complicated. It is complicated. But when you have thick subdials, it makes it look even more cluttered. And I believe that making it thinner, it unclutters the dial a bit and makes it look, just have a little bit more space. So it looks a little bit more relaxing to the eyes. And the thinness of the hour markers, it makes the watch also, in my opinion, look a little more sleek. Aesthetically, looks more streamlined. So I like it. I definitely like it. I like it a lot, actually. I think it looks fantastic. Okay, now for the next part, which is, so that's different from the older version, okay? The bracelet, let's move on, let's talk about that. The bracelet is your standard Oyster bracelet. They don't make the Oyster bracelet, they only make the Daytona with Oyster, which is, I guess it's a good thing. So there's no Jubilee. I don't think they're going to do it. I think they're going to keep it on Oyster. Oyster is a sporty bracelet, and the good thing is it has this 5mm comfort extension, which allows you to change the clasp by 5mm without having to use any tools. It doesn't have a glide lock, but 5mm it's usually enough. Okay, let's move on to the movement. So the bracelet hasn't changed. The movement has changed. Now the old movement was a 4130, 4130. The new movement is a 4131 movement, and it has, what is different? It has a longer power reserve, 72 hours versus 48. It has more precise, ±2 versus, I think, -7. And it has a different finish. Now, you can't see the finish anyways because the watch has a closed case back, but I have seen the movement on this. It looks similar to the 3235 movement, and the old 4130 movement looks similar to the old 3135 movement in that the finishing is the same. So basically the old finishing on the old movements doesn't look as good. It looks dated. And if you look at the new movement, which is what is on here, 4131 movement, it has a nicer finish and all those other things I just stated, and probably a lot more. So anyways, it's a very good movement. Okay, All right, that's the movement. Now it's time for me to try it on and give you my thoughts. I'm 6 foot tall, 200 pounds, 7.5-inch wrist. I think the watch looks fantastic on me. I'm going to try it, as you see. And you see that it is not too small at all. And some people think that 40 millimeters looks too small. I don't think so. And so this watch is trading way above retail, but it's impossible to get at the authorized dealer. You can get it at jazztime.com, which is why people are coming here, and which is why you're watching this video, because you can't get it at the authorized dealer. The retail price as of 23 is around 15,000, but you'd have to buy, like, I don't know, $500,000 worth of stuff, jewelry, diamonds, whatever, before you would be on the list for this Daytona. So it's a very hard watch to get, or whatever it is. You're gonna have to spend a lot of money over there. But you can get it at jazztime.com immediately by clicking on the link in the description below, and that's why we make this video. So I think the stainless steel Daytona is the best steel sports watch that Rolex makes. If you like steel, if you like the durability of steel, you can wear this watch in a very sporting manner. I believe this is a sporting watch, not a dress watch, and it's very durable, super durable. You can bang this around, and you can wear it, very casually, and it's going to look very, very sporty, and it's going to always hold its value. The Daytona holds, of all the Rolexes, the Daytona probably holds the best value of them all. So I think it's just a great watch, and I like it in either black or white. Now, white sells more because people are liking that, but I would not say that the black one's any worse. It's a matter of preference. It really is. People think, oh, I should get the white one because it's more in demand. No, you should get the white if you like white, because it doesn't really matter what other people think. It matters what you're the one who's going to be wearing it. And I don't think anyone's going to look at your wrist and really care that much whether you have black or white. So I like the black. I also like the white. They're both good. And it's just a fantastic watch at this price point. It's competing with Royal Oaks from Audemars, because Royal Oaks are also selling non-chronographs, are also selling right around this price point on the secondary market, so around this 30,000 range. So, and yeah, it's just a fantastic watch. Look, if you want to buy it, go to jazztime.com.
If you want to find out more about the watch you just saw in the video, you can just click below on Show More to see the full description. Then you can check the link next to Model as seen in video, click on it, and you will get to the proper page where you can see all the details. If you're watching on a mobile phone, you have to click on the arrow down on the right hand side below the video to see the full description. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. If you would like to share this video with your friends, you can use the share button below and share it on any platform you like. If you have questions, constructive feedback, want to tell us about some mistakes or misspeaks, just write a comment below. If you want to see more videos like this, you should subscribe to our channel and visit our channel page where you can find all the videos. And if you're interested in a specific watch brand, you can check out our playlists. If you want to check the price for a watch or want to buy one, remember at jazztime.com you always get a steep discount, so you should check the prices with us. If you want to know the price for a specific watch, just go to Google, type in JazzTime, plus the brand, model, and the details you're interested in, and Google will find the right page for you. Thank you for watching.